A member of your team requests to go on parental leave. It's a special but very demanding time for them. Trust me, I know. So, is your parental leave policy a competitive advantage, or is it just good enough? Let's find out. This is the Culture Clinic, where my co-founder Joe and I never stop learning from HR experts on how to build a culture where people love to work. My name is Skay, and I'm one of the co-founders here at Guusto. And today I'm joined by Lydia Bowser, an HR expert and the Senior Director of People and Culture at Wave. Lydia, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
I have been working in the HR field for over 17 years now, most of it spent in the automotive space, but I've also previously and am now working in the tech industry at Wave. What I love about the HR field is that I really believe that we can truly take care of the business by taking care of the people without sacrificing one or the other. And when it comes to the topic that we're talking about today, I'm very passionate because I myself have two little girls who are 6 and 2. So I'm very driven to make a better world for them.
You and me both, Lydia. My children are 6 and 2 as well.
Oh, wow. Okay. So we have a lot in common.
In the thick of it, although I feel like just in the last few months, it started to get a little bit easier with the 2-year-old kind of sleeping through the night and started to communicate a little bit more. So today's topic is obviously all about kind of parental leave and how companies can make parental leave a competitive advantage. And so I know you've kind of given talks on this in the past, so would love to kind of get a ton of your insight. But first, kind of just on like a personal level, like what has been the most challenging aspect of navigating kind of parenthood alongside of the career for you?
The most challenging part that I found, especially if you're trying to progress upwards in my career, it's been that I'm always feeling guilty because work and life is an integration, not a balance. And while that does allow for a lot of flexibility, it also means that most of the time I feel like I'm working too much and not giving enough time to my kids and my partner. Or if it's the opposite, I feel like I'm not giving enough attention to my work. So I'm constantly feeling like I'm letting someone down, and that's really hard to reconcile and navigate. I have no tips of even how to get better. It's a work in progress. I also find it challenging, and I was guilty of this myself before experiencing parental leave personally, that people who haven't taken a maternity and a parental leave don't quite understand the transition you're going through or how it feels. And there are many incorrect assumptions made about women who become mothers, such as they will be less committed to work if they have children, that they are getting a year off of work, and anyone who's done it knows it's not a year off, or hiring decisions. I've seen them being made based on whether you think someone is going to have children. On my second maternity leave, it was during COVID. My oldest started junior kindergarten, which transitioned to online school, as everybody knows. So you probably went through the same thing. So I'm trying to homeschool online a 3-year-old because she's got a late birthday while raising a newborn. And so it was anything but a year off. And being in HR as an elder millennial, I've seen, unfortunately, and witnessed the effect that this can have on women in the workplace and for myself.
Totally. And so, like, what in your opinion then would be an ideal kind of parental leave policy? Like, what should that include?
There are a lot of really great things companies can do. I think the best, I say best part lightly because it's unfortunate, but it's very easy to have a competitive plan because there's not a lot done in this space. So some of the things I think that are pretty key, I could have a list of 100 things. So I'm trying to like pull out some of the key ones that I think. Very simple. Have your policies locked and loaded ahead of time. Prepare your employee for their leave by letting them know what to expect, even for benefit premium payment expectations while they're away. I returned from maternity leave my first time. Even though I'm in HR, I still didn't even connect the fact that I didn't pay my LTD premium the entire year. And I got $600 and something deducted from my first payback after a year off of not being paid. So that was unexpected. And that was very easy to prepare ahead of time. Also, let them know how vacation accrual works. Do you accrue paid or unpaid vacation based on your company's policies or how your contract's written? So very simple things just to make sure that they're done ahead of time. If it's possible, I think having a team member help them navigate applying to EI could be helpful. You don't have to give, you're not giving legal advice, but if you can just give them an idea of what to expect and information that they need, if you have someone on your team that has done it recently, because it does change over time, that I think that's kind of an added little bonus if you can do that. I think providing top up to all parents on leave, if your company can afford it, is really important. Even if you can't, I think you can still help an employee maximize all the benefit offerings like short-term disability, since having birth does qualify as for short-term disability. And the coverage is a bit different between whether you birth not naturally, if you birth vaginally versus cesarean section. It's 6 weeks for the first, 8 weeks for the latter. So you can still maximize the benefits that they can have to increase their take-home pay during the time that they need it most.
So that's interesting. Can I just double click on that? So because we've had a few employees go on parental leave here at Guusto, but we've never kind of put anybody on short-term disability. Is that kind of a common thing?
No, and it's a funny one, and I didn't even know about it until I found out a mom from Toyota told me about it, and she was very upset because she had probably had kids 10 years prior to that and should have been offered the same thing. It's not always needed, but it isn't, and usually I think it's used if people need to take time off before a baby comes, but the act of a baby coming does qualify for disability. I highly suggest checking your plans just to make sure and to see what you have. And I know that plans are funded differently as well. But they could qualify for that before qualifying for EI, which may even extend their leave a little bit longer.
Right. And then the company could do top up either on the short-term disability period or kind of the parental leave period.
There's lots of opportunities there. I even had a company previously, when top up was kind of new, they agreed to top up to just a certain amount. So it can be hard to budget for maternity leaves, especially if you don't know what level of income in the organization of the person that's going to take it. But if you set a fixed amount that is above and beyond what the government will provide, that could also be a really great start, because then you can try to estimate a number per year, which I know is, also hard, but then at least you know exactly what to expect as far as what you're spending.
Right. So whether the employee is kind of making $50,000 or $200,000 a year, you're kind of topping up to the same amount.
Is it enough to retain someone at the higher level? I don't know, but you still have to figure out what your company can afford. And I think that if you're trying to make progress in the right direction, there's nothing wrong with that. I think that there's a few other things I got on my list.
Yeah, let's hear them.
There's a lot of things to navigate through of what's to come. And so new parents, for example, don't even realize that they should get on a waiting list for daycare while the baby's still in utero. I was traveling and touring daycares when I was 5 months pregnant. EAPs can help a lot with that as well. So people should tap into to those programs if their company offers them, because they can ask for assistance on, what daycares in this area will take twins. If they're already born, we'll take twins with a banana allergy, and your EAP will do the work for you to, because it's daunting to have to do all that on your own. So your company probably has some things that you can leverage that could really help with that. And it could also sometimes be done through the experience of people in your company of things they've went through. But I think it's also really important to not make it a policy to automatically take someone's equipment away. If you can afford it, I know IT equipment's not cheap. I think that having a solid communication check-in plan determined ahead of time that includes how you will update the employee with information, inform them of job or trading opportunities, and make sure that they're still included in all of those things. I think even if, I think you can ask them how interactive they want to be with the company. And even if they say, I don't want to be, they don't know what it's like to be on a leave that long. And a lot of these things can apply for sick leave as well, by the way, not just parental leave. So check in with them just to make sure that they're still feeling the same. And if they are, great. But if not, then you can readjust your plan for while they're off. I think that for something that many people go through, parenthood, especially motherhood, being up at 2 a.m. feeding is extremely lonely. Even though millions of people go through it, it's still extremely lonely and very hard on your mental health. I think allowing employees who are on leave to participate in training offerings and programs while on leave, they can make that work. Planning a graduated return to work plan with an employee, which sounds like we've all heard about graduated return to work plans. It's an easy thing, but a lot of people don't offer it or consider the needs of the employee. And even though you build a return to work plan with an employee, remain flexible that their return plans may shift. Kids get sick a lot when they start going to daycare. For me, that was one of the most stressful parts of my return, because I think within a 2-week span, like, she was sent home maybe 4 times. And as a woman in a male-dominated industry who's trying to get back into work, it adds an extra layer of stress, worrying that my organization is not going to see me committed, because that's what I've been conditioned to understand people believe about women once they have children. Once you do onboard them, I think that reorienting them to what's happened in the company, updates to the department, on all the work that's been done over the last year is really important. Also kind of sounds like a no-brainer, but I'm really surprised by the number of companies that just expect someone to jump right back in where they left off. And if you're at a company that has done that and an employee has done it successfully, just know that the employee bared the brunt of it and did all of the work to reorient themselves without you having to do it. So like, oh, that's not a problem here. People have no problem. Guaranteed they did. And they put a lot of work and a lot of stress into it to make it look that way. And may even feel resentful for it.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost like you need to be kind of thinking about it as a fresh onboarding experience, right? Like, they've been gone for 12 to 18 months, and a lot can kind of change in that period. And so getting them, I mean, they'll have a lot, depending on how long they've been with the organization prior to the parental leave, they'll have a lot of kind of foundational knowledge there, but getting them up to speed, and even more so in companies that are in remote work environments, right? Because you're so isolated, and kind of getting up to speed is a little bit more challenging when you're not in the office, kind of picking up on kind of things organically with everybody there. You know, another thing that you touched on, one thing I love that you said there, that our HR team, shout out to Noah and Julie on our team, who have done a great job of kind of helping us guide kind of our first few kind of parental leaves. But talking to the employee about kind of like what do they want their parental leave experience to be like? How much communication do they want? But you highlighted kind of giving them opportunities to participate in trainings. Like, that hadn't occurred to me, and I think is a really kind of interesting idea.
Yeah, that was from personal experience. So I have some things I think could have been done better for me, but it was, we're all learning. And now I have an opportunity with a new experience, to make it better. But I was asked to come in for training. They had, a 3-day training program that they were taking our leaders through. And I was very grateful that they asked me to participate in it. I got to put on some real clothes, go in and see some of my favorite people, and also know that they cared about my continuing development. And it may not seem like a big deal. Like, well, of course, I'm on the leadership team. Of course, she can attend. But to me, it meant a lot more than just that. Yeah.
I think having gone through it with our family here, and we had some really kind of challenging early years with our kids, and it almost felt like a little bit of a vacation, kind of going back to work, even for me. And I know when my wife went back to work too, she was like, "That's easy compared to being full-time mom." What do you see as kind of the biggest flaws, Lydia, that most companies kind of make with their parental leave policies and approaches right now?
Yeah, and I mean, no offense, and I'll talk, other than the fact that executives with decision power, not having typically experienced maternity leave, because a lot of them are men. So other than that, so getting more women on your leadership team to help advocate. It's the same for all diversity, not just women. Having a more diverse leadership team will create a better employee experience for your employees, not in addition to creating a better company and product for your diverse customer base. It works both ways. So and I'm guilty of this before I experienced it myself. So it's not just men, but there's no thought put into what a leave actually means. This is the biggest flaw. And it's the same for sick leave. And it's a whole different type of transformation when it's a sick leave, depending on what it was for and how long. So I can only speak from the parental leave. But it is a complete transformation that your employees are going through. And it's just expected that they wrap up their last day, easy peasy, go on their way, usually not thought about for the whole year until it's time to plan for their return. There's no thought put into their return after they've been gone for a year or 18 months or whatever they've decided. But I promise you, the person is not the same person they were when they left. And they need a lot more than just an expectation to jump back into things to return. I think that's the biggest flaw.
How can companies address that? Obviously, leaning on kind of HR departments, right? This is where the expertise is, but there's got to be some processes or playbooks built for managers, right? Because often, that's where the strongest relationship is between employee and manager. And so how do we train managers on how to kind of navigate parental leaves?
I think there's a lot of things people can do as a leader to people who are preparing for a leave and on a leave and returning from a leave. One, you can get resources from companies who are putting together really great data on this and like talks like this. So even though Guusto is a particular product, a lot of really great companies, Bright and Early has got a lot of really great content. Culture Amp has a lot of really great content. You don't need to be a customer to have access to information. Some of them even have really great playbooks of how to create good parental and maternity leave programs. So even if you just Google that, a lot of really great stuff is going to come up. But also, I think that as a manager, act as an advocate to help get the resources that your team member needs. Connect them with the departments, connect them with HR. Be part of the process, not just say, okay, now I'm handing you over to HR and they take care of everything. Be a partner with them in that and to help them through their process. If your company doesn't provide training to managers, in addition to what they can do in their own learning time, to ahead of, during, or after a leave, you can ask for it. You can ask HR to put together programs to coach the managers on how to better support their employees. Also, I think one of the big things that helps me just overall in a lot of the unlearning and relearning I have to do for all diversity initiatives, follow social media accounts of working moms if you aren't one. You can pick up a lot of learning just by absorbing their content. And it can be challenging because people who are not like you can be very quick to unfollow them. I'm guilty of that as well. I'm like, oh, well, this is irrelevant to me. I'm going to unfollow. But I have to actively choose to continue to follow their content, knowing that I'm absorbing learning of differences of people who are different than me that will help me help other people in my role as a leader and just as a human being. I think that it's very important as a leader that when someone tells you they're preparing for a leave, whether they tell you when they're 5 weeks pregnant, 3 months, or 7 months, as long as they give you the right notice, it's really up to the employee. I told my manager at 5 weeks, so I'm like, it was just him and I, and I'm like, just in case I don't know how this is going to go, I want you to know what I'm dealing with right now. And I felt really safe to be able to do that and grateful that I could, but I know not everybody has that. But as a manager, you can't mentally stop considering your employee for things just because that you already know in your mind that they have an end date that they're going to be leaving. I think it's very important that you still need to create meaningful work, allow them to participate in opportunities while they're still working. And even when they're on leave, never stop considering them and including them in departmental plans. I think you can also advocate to get a replacement with adequate time to onboard a new person. Due dates are very unpredictable. I'm still surprised when people are like, even I was very unsure about due dates because I had seen what had happened to a lot of people. Like, oh, well, my last day is this date. I'm like, that's what you think it might be, but you never know. And this theme with organizations, like, oh, we have another 3 weeks. You may have another 3 weeks, but you may not. So I think hiring with enough time to train to be able to help the team member, especially moms, So they're not in a position where they're helping their replacement the first few weeks with a newborn. And that's very difficult. And employees may feel like they want to help. I was that person. I'm like, no, this is like, especially the first time, I was like, I can still help. I can show you that I can still be part of the workplace and I still want to progress. So I'm going to help you with whatever you need. But show them enough support that they don't feel like they have to do that in order to maintain their career trajectory.
Yeah, something that kind of came up. We had a lunch and learn kind of a while back. I'm forgetting the name of the woman that came and spoke with our group. But she talked about performance reviews and making sure that if there was a performance review cycle that happened while somebody was on parental leave or maternity leave, that happened kind of upon return for the employee. And because sometimes the timing of these performance reviews, especially if they're tied in some way to salary reviews or promotions or something like that, they can just have some bad luck, and like the review cycle happens right after they go on parental leave, and then they kind of come back and miss the next one. And they're kind of off cycle. And
I think you'll keep it going. I felt very grateful. I didn't understand it at the time because I'm like, well, and I think this is important for managers too, because even if your employee insisting like, no, don't worry about it, I'm not going to be here. That's an opportunity for you to show them the importance and how much you care about their growth and development. I got my reviews while I was on a leave. My manager reached out and said, what's a great time for you? I need about an hour of your time. We're going to go through it, because I did fall. I went for maternity leave. Both my kids are born November and October, and we did a calendar year. So both times I just missed it. But I didn't. They did it for me afterwards, and I still got an increase. And they sent me, I still had access to my computer because they allowed me to have it, and I wanted that to feel connected. So I was grateful for that as well. So they just emailed me a PDF copy after they took me through it. And I'm very grateful for that.
Yeah, none of this is hard, right? Like, this is just kind of treating people like humans, right? Like,
and a lot of it doesn't cost a lot of money. You could spend a lot of money on some things, and top up does cost some, but there are a lot of things that cost you nothing.
You mentioned kind of following people. I follow a woman named Allison Whalen, founder of Parental. You ever kind of come across?
Yes, you know that. Did I mention them? Yep.
Yeah, she does a great job of kind of putting out really kind of good content on LinkedIn. So if anybody's kind of interested, I encourage you to kind of check her out. Outside of like an official policy, what can HR leaders or people leaders do to improve the employee's experience both before and after the child arrives? Yeah, so like HR is kind of a little bit more arm's length, right, from kind of a lot of employees, especially at like a larger organization, right? And you know, I haven't had the experience of kind of working in an HR department at a large organization, but I have to imagine that it's difficult to kind of have conversations with every employee that might be going on kind of some sort of leave, right? And so, what are some things that's kind of scale?
I think the biggest thing is that you just need to put the process in place, because I find what most companies do is they're scrambling, and then they think they should put something in place, but quickly that person figures out how to reorient themselves into the workplace, and then they forget about it. And then the next person goes on leave, and it's a scramble again for a lot of people within the organization. So I think investing the time in planning the processes, how to help the people, writing out content for them that you can share with them, and providing them with all the benefits information, writing out checklists of what you should go over with them. It's all simple stuff. And it's a no-brainer when you think of it, but people don't do it. So that's why we're still here talking about it. And then training your managers. I think that it's an opportunity to, every time you find out that someone's going on a leave, any type of leave, if you could do it ahead of time, that'd be great. But if not, know how to coach and share all these things that I shared of what a manager can do. Suggest to the managers what they can do. They're not going to think of all those things on their own. But we as an HR team can, and other leadership within the team can absolutely do that.
We work a lot with kind of organizations that then have frontline employees, and I know that you had experience with that likely at Panday. So what tips would you give to kind of frontline companies which can offer options for remote working and other kinds of flexibility to help support kind of working parents when they come back?
At Hyundai, I was at the corporate head office, so not a ton, but I'm well connected with automotive and do a lot of initiatives for women. So hear from a lot of different sectors and kind of their needs as well. I think that wherever possible, you need to ensure that you understand all of the duties of your role, of the roles that are within your company. That way, if you know that someone is standing on their feet all day, you can understand, are there other roles or are there accommodations that we can make for that person and duties that they can do? Either providing accommodations physically, could that person have a stool? Or is there another role that we can put them into that, or change their duties slightly for this period of time? And I think that if someone's regularly lifting 50 pounds, same thing. If it's part of their job, what other duties can they do that are needed to operate your business? So if you understand what's needed in your business, you should be able to come up with a plan for these people to be able to help your business. If you don't plan ahead, it feels really stressful. So I think really understanding your roles in business can really help with that. One of the things I like to remind leaders and employees of is equity is not quality. So providing everyone with the same thing, as we know, does nothing to address the individual needs of our diverse employees. So we need to personalize the employee experience. So that doesn't mean that, you do something for one person. And I know this can be hard because you also want to have fairness in your organizations. But I remind those people that when they are in a time of need, that means that we're going to meet their needs as well. And so that usually resonates a lot with people so that they know, okay, they met this person's needs. I'm not in the same situation, but demanding the same thing, that's a little bit unfair. But I know when I do have a need, they're going to help and accommodate me, whether it's a leave or anything else.
Seeing kind of like a team support each other in that way is fantastic, right? And ultimately kind of leads to kind of a more effective, more kind of impactful kind of workforce, right? If they're all kind of helping each other out.
And it does depend on the culture that you've been able to create, because that conversation will go very different depending on the culture. So if you do have a culture that encourages uplifting others and, the success of the team is this, success of one person is the success of all of us. And just because one person's getting something isn't taking anything away from me, versus competitive backstabbing to get ahead, poor goals that lead to poor decision making. It's not going to work as well there. So you have to really work on your culture before some of this stuff is actually going to be helpful.
I want to kind of like step back a second here. What's in it for the company if they get this right? Like, what's the upside here if you kind of really nail parental leave?
I think your employer branding and your access to more diverse candidates increases, which I'm hoping is important to all companies. I know it varies to different degrees, but I think that should be important for all companies. I think you will retain employees longer. I think that you will increase the trust with your whole organization if you create not just this type of program, but other programs to support the needs of other people. And that's more like a holistic people first type of culture, which I know a lot of companies are really good at doing, you guys included. Because if you have trust and you have a really strong foundation, you can go through business ups and downs, culture attacks, changes that may in another company dismantle an entire business, and you will come through it on the other side fairly. I know summing it up as fairly easily is not the right way to do it, but it takes work. But the employees will come with you on those journeys and stay and feel like an owner of the company and want to continue to be part of it. This is just one small piece. I think the unfortunate thing is that it's so often overlooked and not considered. I think that's one of the biggest opportunities for parental leave, because you have an opportunity to really stand out, because there's not a lot of attention here. But there are some really amazing companies, like you mentioned, Parentally. I got to meet the two women that founded Matern. They're based out of Vancouver, and they do something that's really interesting. They've created training programs for women who are transitioning to motherhood, as well as leadership training skills. So it's a very unique type of program that I've never seen before, that I think would be incredible to be able to offer your employees.
Cool. I'll have to check that out. You know, we obviously here at Guusto talk a lot about kind of culture and recognition, but it's so true, right? Like it's easy for employees to kind of stick around at the company if everything's going gangbusters and growing, and there's all sorts of kind of opportunities for promotions and whatnot. But when there's kind of more headwinds and things are tough, there are less reasons for employees to stay. And if the culture sucks, if they don't feel kind of supported, or they don't have the trust in their leadership, they're going to leave. And so like it's so crucial to have that component to get through the tough times.
Yeah. And having, I've worked at several places, probably more than I would have thought I would have at this stage, but some of the values didn't align with me at those organizations. But I have had the opportunity to witness a lot of different situations and companies. So I actually feel grateful for the opportunity to see the differences, because that helps me create future great workplaces.
Awesome. Okay, so last question here for you, Lydia. What are the best ways to ensure parents can continue to enjoy the same career growth and opportunities as others, rather than kind of falling behind? Because if you look at kind of men and women's salaries, they're actually fairly kind of close together until this moment where women start to have children, and then the salary gap kind of really starts to kind of like separate at that point. So what strategies do you have there?
I think there's a few things that need to happen. I think you can, like we talked about the review process, which a lot of them tie into comp in some way. Include them in the process. I know it can be really tough to try to come up with a program that rewards someone who maybe was not there. But I think that if you are, for a period of time, but I think that if you are trying to advocate for pay equity, then you will make sure that doesn't happen. And it's not like we're talking about salary increases of 10 or 20%. Most organizations have done between 3 and 5 over the last, 10 plus years. So we're not talking, in most cases, break the bank type of money. And I think another thing that has to happen, management needs a lot of training and a lot of unlearning and a lot of relearning. And that one's really tough, because most of them have been in their careers for many years. So their willingness to want to do the changes that are required to create a more equitable workplace vary. And if they're not all on board, that one's really tough, because it's not like you're going to go fire all your leaders. But I think that you can do things internally to set the expectations. Presidents can set the expectations, or CEOs. You can tie it into performance metrics and KPIs to drive the behavior that you're looking for. Because if they don't get on board and that they're affected either in their increases, then they're going to quickly change their tune. And even if it's not because they wanted to initially from the heart, even if you have to incentivize them with money, maybe that will help. I hate that that's the way that it has to be, but it's just the reality that we live in. And I think that just include your people. Don't consider them gone. Include them in all of your planning. Allow them to participate in things based on the degree to which they want to. Check in with them. And you never know, someone might return for an opportunity early. A year's a long time. Not everybody, and everyone has a different experience. So maybe people want to return early. Maybe people said they wanted to take 18 months, but maybe that ends up being too long for them. I'm not sure I could have done 18 months. 12 months was was good for me. But ask them, maybe they want to return early for an opportunity. And if not, save the promotion for when they come back. You can really, like, how much is it going to affect your business versus how much good and goodwill it's going to do for your employee base if you wait till they come back and promote them or make it work somehow. I've seen it done, even at small companies.
Can I go back to the incentivizing piece there? Because I didn't quite like follow it. So you would incent, like, if top level leadership was like on board for, hey, we're gonna do a good job of parental leave, but we've got to get some of the other kind of senior leaders on board here.
I think I did a very bad job of explaining it, because my mind was ahead of me. Like, if you every year you're setting KPIs top down from your organization, and I've seen different KPIs for senior leaders, like, cost savings, profitability, that may not trickle down to the whole organization. But you can elevate the importance of other KPIs for executives, like people development and people management, and the competencies that you want to see from that leader. And if you don't display these competencies in this way, then it will affect your performance score, which will lead to potentially not as high of an increase type of thing. Not direct incentivization. I wouldn't do that. But I have found success in driving the behaviors of leadership through making those important goals for the leaders across an organization. Does that make more sense?
Yeah. So could you give me a kind of like a specific example then? Would it be, for example, making sure that leaders are doing kind of their performance reviews for all of their kind of direct reports, including those that are on kind of parental leave?
Yeah. So, for example, if you have competencies that include people development, it could include that you have, your people who are on leave haven't been excluded from those opportunities. Or, maybe this is better for a larger organization that has more data, but tracking the data of leaders and their people and what are their success rates within the organization, like the mothers who go on leaves, to track that data and maybe come up with some metrics around that. For people management, it's tough because you could say, do reviews with your people, but then are they good quality? So you also have to try to make sure they're doing meaningful feedback and conversations with their people, but you can come up with ways to do that. And I think that if, it could be, I know this sounds trivial and it could be starting small, like having every member of your leadership team sponsor an ERG within the organization, like trying to drive the right behaviors, and hold them accountable to them.
I like that last one, kind of having them kind of sponsor an ERG.
Get creative and like what's important to your organization. Try to come up with ways that gets them involved but from a byproduct, they're going to learn and develop and hopefully do what they need to, like learn what they need to unlearn and learn some new things and become a better leader for the people.
We spend a lot of time kind of helping companies with recognition programs specifically. Have you seen recognition leveraged in any way around kind of parental leave at past organizations?
I've seen a few things that tie into recognition, which also kind of ties into support. And Guusto is a great platform for that, especially because there's a lot of options. Like when someone goes on a leave, I think, or even as they're preparing, and I talked about this at Disrupt HR, like when women go through the body changes that they do, especially the first time, it sucks. And people are talking about your body as if it's not yours anymore. And I won't even mention some of the things that were said to me. We had to go out to our employee base and talk about the importance of respect, about not talking about people's appearance in their body. Give them an allowance to a clothing store or a cash bonus so that it doesn't have to be big, so that they can go buy some, especially if it's a remote office, if it's a remote workplace, maybe it's not as important, but if you do have like a hybrid model, women want to be able to come to work in something that they're comfortable in, and maybe not everybody has access to that based on their personal situations. Then also as they go off on leave, a lot of companies give presents I love onesies that are branded by the company, but also make it more like there's a lot of things that you can do for someone that gives them options. Do they want a cleaning service? Would a cleaning service help them if you give that to them for a week, or a meal delivery service for a week? Not just Uber Eats, which I love, but like there's actual programs out there that will deliver home cooked meals to families, depending on the size. So there's a lot of things that you can do there that are going to be meaningful, helpful rewards and recognition for here's what you're going through. Here's how we're going to support you. And then on the during the year, if we did this at Hyundai, any gifts that we were giving out, whether it was through Guusto or otherwise, or tangible things, everybody was included, including people on leave. Opportunities to give rewards to other people, because we did a lot of peer-to-peer, not just manager down. Allow them to participate in that as well. Their friendships are not gone just because they're on leave. We know how important friendships are at work. So allowing them to participate in those types of activities as well, I think is very important. And then once they return, maybe not as personally, I wouldn't think that providing a reward rate at the return is the plan to come back is really important, but there's so much leading up to it that you can do. There's so much opportunity. Companies just need to do it.
Yeah, well, and it really is kind of a competitive advantage if you get this right. If you're looking to strengthen your team, check out Culture is the Ultimate Advantage, our free guide to creating a culture where people feel appreciated, connected, and inspired. Click the link in the description to get your copy. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the episode, please hit that like button and be sure to subscribe so you don't miss an episode. And don't forget to recognize someone for a job well done today. Mucho gusto!